We're live. Oh, it happened. Hello. Oh, did you want a mic? Yeah. Okay. I'm giving a mic to Brianna. Welcome. They will hear everything that picks up. Welcome to another Thursday night, and you might need to turn it on. I don't know. We'll see if it picks it up or not. You got to turn off your... Welcome to another Thursday Night Live. My name is Chuck. I don't know if that's on. You might have to like push the power button or something. It'll turn on and we'll see two little green bars. We just decided to add oh, there you go. Yeah, I bet it's gonna pair up now.
I shouldn't be allowed.
Oh yeah, you're on. Anyways, my name's Chuck and this is Brianna. We're hanging out in her shop this Thursday evening for a live with Chuck. I think you're gonna be like that late night TV show sidekick that like sits in the interviewer's seat, you know? And Johnny Carson's like, not like I'm Johnny Carson, but they just kind of sit there.
Yeah.
And read the questions and stuff.
Now I can just tell everyone the truth about what's happening. This is our first time in the shop all day.
This is our first time in the shop all day. Yeah, we were working on side projects. There's no shortage of those around here. Anyway, welcome aboard. If you are new here, my name's Chuck and I convert school buses for a living, although I do a lot more than that. That's pretty much all we talk about here on the channel.
Your friends have a main question so far.
We already have a question. Oh my gosh, what do we have?
Yeah, what are your thoughts on the underbench AC unit?
Thoughts on the underbench AC unit? Those are awesome. They're super easy to install because it's got better performance than a rooftop AC unit. It's not as efficient as a full-blown mini split, but the install is really easy. You cut one rectangular opening and a hole. Mm-hmm. I think that's all it is, like a 2-inch hole. The rectangular opening is pretty big. In the floor of your rig, it needs 12-volt power, which is funny and annoying. And then it plugs right into a 120-volt AC outlet. So the install is really simple, and it gives you air conditioning and heating, 9,000 BTUs of each, which is good for smaller rigs. I would say once you get to the 7-window or larger bus, especially if you don't have really good insulation, it's probably not going to be enough for you, but
you could always have 2 of them.
You could always have 2. Well, and we did do 2 in a bus that we build for David Beach. It's a 1964 Crown, 34 feet long, and well, we'll see.
It seemed longer than 34 feet.
It did with the roof raise. This is actually going to be his first summer in it, so we'll see.
See how it does.
He'll be curious.
Those units are also cool because they're ducted. So
yeah, you can duct them if you want.
3 different duct locations,
Mm-hmm.
which is way better than, I don't like mini splits, how you generally have them above your bed and then they're blowing on you all night.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I'm not a fan of that.
I will say my friend Brad, Crown and Around, who I think he's in here, he did a dual zone mini split system using the ceiling cassettes. So they're pretty big. I think they're about 20 by 20 or 24 by 24, and they're meant to be installed like in the ceiling of a building, that has room above them, like up into an attic or something, because I think they're about 12 inches tall. But he did a roof raise and had those drop down slightly, and I thought that was really cool because then he had 2 ceiling mount outputs for his mini split, so he could distribute it throughout his bus. And even if you didn't do a roof raise, you could like just build a metal box, like on the roof. I mean, just like a rooftop AC to house, the ceiling cassettes. I thought that was pretty cool. It does work, and Brad's gonna be up here. Maybe we'll do a tour of his bus. I really love his bus, but Brad's gonna be here in a couple weeks.
Yeah, he just mentioned that.
Oh, there he is. Mm-hmm. Anyway.
Someone also asked what metal piping I use for my roof decks.
Yeah.
That is just conduit, or not conduit, but what's it called? Oh my gosh.
What is it called? Just galvanized pipe,
black iron.
Yeah.
But you can get the galvanized kind, and it's at Home Depot. It looks cool, and it's definitely sturdy enough, but it is not the quickest thing to install. I have since switched to doing just standard house racking, and it's a lot easier.
Yeah, she's talking about like the regular solar rail stuff that I do. And her stuff is cool, but there's a lot of feet and angles and
Yeah, it's an
Parts.
intense install. I'm actually looking at fixing the one on my black bus right now because it was in an accident, and I'm debating fixing the pipes or just taking it all off and doing rails.
Yeah.
I think the rails will be quicker than fixing.
There's something to consider.
Mm-hmm.
But they are DIY friendly. Although so is the other racking system,
Yeah, the
honestly.
other racking is really quick.
The intimidating part is like finding where you can buy that stuff. But Green Tech Renewables, they're the only store I know like this. They're like trying to become the Home Depot of solar stuff. So they have locations popping up in like all cities where you can just go and buy the stuff so you can save a lot on shipping. Because shipping long stuff is, well, really expensive.
Tamarack Solar
What's their deal?
ship stuff.
They
It's
ship stuff?
like $200 for every 4 panels you do.
For shipping or for the rails?
Total.
Oh,
For the
total.
rails and feet.
Shipping.
Yeah.
Anyway. Brad's going to be here by the 19th or 20th. Yeah, Brad's replacing the injectors on his Cummins 855 15-liter turbo diesel engine in his Crown. 15 liters. That is double the size of the engine in my bus, which is already a big engine.
That's huge.
It's huge. And he's got a 13-speed transmission and Jake brakes. Oh, that's cool. What do we got? Any good questions, Brianna?
No good questions yet.
Okay.
What else do you guys want to know?
Throw some questions in the chat because that's what we're here for.
You got one.
Oh, what do we got?
Thoughts on residential solar setups like the EG4 6000?
Yeah, good question. This is a really common question, and Brianna gets asked it a lot, and I get asked it a lot by the people that we do consultations for. And every couple months, it seems like we'll get really jazzed on it and be like, yeah, we should just do these all-in-ones. And then like we look into it and we're like,
doing a bunch of math.
Yeah, and then we're like, oh, that's why. And it's really, it boils down to this. In our buses and rigs, the big limiting factor on our solar lives is the roof and how many panels we can fit on the top of that, because that's how much we're going to make no matter what. And so we have to be as efficient as we can, which means using devices, inverters that have low idle consumption. And that's how much power they use just by being on. Because for most people, inverters are on all the time. For Brianna, she doesn't leave her inverter on all the time. And she's very proud of that fact. And it's cool, for sure, right?
I just don't like leaving things on.
Yeah.
They all make a noise and it just bugs me.
She's got the hearing of a bat. So, so here's where you run into the troubles, though. This all-in-one unit, it's going to be on all the time. And those all-in-ones, the ones that we looked at, do you remember? It was like 70 watts or
50.
60, 50?
Yeah.
There's somewhere between 50 and 70 watts, which is not a lot, right? That's like what a light bulb used to use back when they were incandescent. But when you compare that to a Victron Multiplus 2 that pulls, I think, between 11 and 16 watts, you see that there's about a 5 times difference there. And if you do the math, 50 watts times 24 hours, so we're going from watts to watt hours, the amount of power used to the amount of energy consumed, that is going to step us up to 1.2 kilowatt hours of energy a day just to be ready to make power for you. Like just to be sitting there ready to supply your devices with power. And to put that into perspective, to generate 1.2 kilowatts of power, that's about 225 watts, 250 watts of solar panel will produce that in a day. So if you have a bus like mine that's like 2200 watts of panel, 10% of the energy I make is going just to keep my system on. Whereas if that was a Victron system with the Victron Multiplus 2, it would be a fifth of that. It would be like 2 or 3%. So it's a huge, like when you think of it that way, it's a big difference, and that's what rules it out. That was long-winded, but like if I had a house and could just add as many panels as I wanted to, I would totally consider that because panels are very cheap, and if you can add them cheaply and you have the space, go for it. Did I miss anything?
No. It's basically you have to add an entire another panel to make it
You have to add a whole,
doable.
or give up a panel.
Yeah.
If you're already maxed out. But they're cool, like, and they're cheap as heck. I mean, I think it was like $800 or $900. And the connections are easy. I mean, there's a lot of plus sides. And we're getting to the point now where panels, when I did my first bus with solar AC, the panels were 300 watts each. Now that same size panel is 450 watts or more. So we're getting there. you know, like,
Yeah.
but
Speaking of getting there,
getting there.
well, first, Chance gave you a super chat.
Chance. Oh, hey. Thanks for the super chat.
And then, what are your thoughts on Tesla batteries?
You know,
They're cheap.
yeah. And I don't know what the price is now, but this is my one and only experience with Tesla batteries. We had a guy named Brandon who brought his Brandon, if you're watching, what's up? He brought his bus in, and someone had done a DIY Tesla battery. And yeah, for the amount of energy stored in that thing, the form factor was really, really small. But those model of Tesla batteries were not lithium iron phosphate, so they were much more sensitive in terms of uh, what conditions they would need to be under to go into like a thermal runaway. They're not as safe, you could say. The other thing is, not being lithium iron phosphate, they have a shorter cycle life. I think those batteries are around 1,000 cycles, which is, depending on who you ask, between a quarter and a seventh of what lithium iron phosphate is. But the big thing was, even then, this was like 2 years ago, for what you would pay for those batteries that you'd have to assemble yourself, buy a BMS for, have no warranty, and be on your own, it was still not insanely cost competitive with what you would pay to get like a server rack battery. I think, gosh, I can't remember the numbers, but it was such that he came to us looking to upgrade his system, and instead of adding more Tesla batteries, we got rid of the Tesla battery, tried to sell it, ended up selling it for way less than we had hoped to, and replaced his whole system with server rack batteries, and he hasn't had an issue since. So
Server rack batteries are so cheap now that it's hard to.
it's like, why use anything else?
You get a 10-year warranty with them.
Yeah.
It's kind of incredible.
And right now, little word to the wise, EG4 is phasing out their life power model, at least in the 24 volt and maybe the 12 volt, it seems like. So you can get deals on those for cheap. They have refurbished ones for $1,000 a piece, which still carry a warranty. And it also means that the version 2.0, which is cool, it's got a screen and all that, and I'm not convinced you need those features, to be honest. But now the version 2.0, which does have a higher output BMS, it's a 200 amp BMS instead of a 100 amp, which means one battery can supply larger loads. They've come down to the price of what were formerly the base model.
Very cool.
I could digress forever.
Hey, is there anything to consider for installing a seatbelt within a self-built couch aside from connecting directly to the bus frame?
Wow, that's a good question. I am not an expert in vehicle safety and crashes or anything like that, but the only things that I looked out for when we were doing it for other people is just what you said. Like, I like a through-bolted connection to a metal part of the bus, so no self-tappers or anything like that. And then just think about the way it's pulling. And so if it's in an accident, if you have that seatbelt like come straight up and then go over a piece of wood before it wraps around that person, like in an accident, I would imagine that the pull on that would put a lot of strain on that piece of wood too, which might break the piece of wood or something, and then that person's seatbelt is no longer tight. So just think about making it so that it's a straight shot, lassoing around the waist of the person. And that's all I'm going to say, because I don't know.
I also try and consider what your bench is made out of. If you are building a bench out of wood and then connecting the seatbelt to it, that wood can still break and tear off of things, and just imagine what that would be like in an accident. I try and build out of metal or have the passenger seats be already made seats that accommodate. I don't know.
You don't know.
If you want to actually be safe, I would just grab like a fold-up bus seat or something and have a co-pilot chair.
If you want some good seats to put into a rig, they're not couches, but Toyota Sienna minivan seats from 04, maybe till now, but at least starting in 04, their middle row seats are amazing because they have built-in seat belts. And if you look at the way they mount and you're kind of savvy about it, there is a way to really easily replicate the like bar that they would hook onto originally in the van and make your own mount. So like the seats removable and stuff.
That'd be nice.
If you're into metal fab and stuff, those, like, I did a bunch of like junkyard research and found those seats, and that's all we've used when people have asked for single seats in buses. And if you can make it removable, get in there and check it out because it's pretty cool. And then if you mess up the seat, you just take it out and buy another one off Craigslist. Let's give it up for the Toyota Sienna. Wow.
Oh, you're doing window questions. You see that window question?
No.
From Poet 999999999.
Poet Nines. What do we got?
Window question. You mentioned double pane RV windows, but other reviews say that the insulative value doesn't make up for the cost.
Well, yeah, sure. Whether or not the insulative value is worth the cost is always, that is like the definition of a subjective decision. The R value difference, it's double. It's like double the R value. We're doubling a very small number, but we are doubling it. What I like though, and like you're still gonna get ice and condensation, but at least with a double pane window, you're gonna get less of that.
Way less.
And that's also as big of an enemy as the energy loss, in my opinion, because moisture in our window, on our windows, in our walls, that's like the real enemy. Keeping a space warm, that's something you can deal with day to day. But if your rig starts to get wet from the inside out, you're screwed. Like,
yeah, that condensation will just drip down your walls. I've like caulked the bottom seam of window trim to make sure that moisture stays out of the wall.
Oh wow.
But then also the R value of a window does not matter. It's gonna suck. It's a window, so you can get thermal curtains or double bubble or something when you need it.
In a mission critical situation, you really should have a window covering. I mean, and it doesn't matter what window you've got.
The best window will not insulate your bus.
I actually think the biggest argument against double pane, and it's an issue I haven't had personally, is that certain double pane windows, when exposed to lots of elevation changes, can get their seals to the point where I don't know exactly how these seals work. I don't think they're supposed to breathe, but I think some windows maybe do. The seals will fail, and if you get regular air into there, that air has moisture, and then you can like get this fog in between your panes of glass. And I know that that's a real potential problem just by the nature of the design, but I haven't had that issue. And I don't know what the price difference is between single pane and double pane, but you're on the double pane windows I've bought, they are better quality in general. So it's not just the number of panes, but the quality of the seals, the slides, the hardware. And even on the double pane windows I installed on my bus, which are pretty expensive, they're still not that good. Like RV windows are way better than school bus windows, but they're still, frankly, leaving a lot of room for improvement, a lot of opportunities for improvement, I would say.
I haven't found any windows I particularly love.
Peninsula Glass makes a banging window, but they are very, very expensive. But they'll do custom windows. But you're looking at a minimum of like $600 to $700 a window. Still cheaper than house windows. Nice house windows are even more than that.
Cheap house windows are way less.
True enough.
Are there any underbench AC only units? We have a diesel heater already.
Well, sure, you got a diesel heater already.
Have a diesel heater.
But like, I would almost just be like, who cares? Because this is the same price as like any rooftop AC. They're about $1,000. So it's kind of like, I mean, in my opinion, for $1,000 to get an efficient, easy to mount AC, you should just be happy with that, you know? And the fact that it gives you the opportunity to heat your rig very efficiently those times when you are plugged in is a really cool bonus. Because it's way more efficient than a space heater. You know, like the typical move.
Safer.
Yeah, and way safer. The typical move is like in the wintertime, if you're somewhere with hookups, you plug in and run a space heater. And that's fine, but that uses a ton of power. You know, the amount of heat output per watt that you use is really low compared to with a heat pump. A heat pump is like, this one is probably going to be, I could do the math right now. almost, it's like 1.8 times more efficient than running a space heater in terms of watts into the bus and BTUs of heat out. That's cool.
I'm going to say in terms of what, because aren't electric heaters technically 100% efficient?
They're 100% efficient. Yeah. Electric space heater is 100% efficient.
Next question, I'm curious as to how you answer this. What kind of cabinet should one put their batteries in, in case of a fire, etc.?
Ooh, good question.
It's an interesting question.
I would love to know what chemistry are the batteries we're talking about. Because if it's a lithium, any lithium-based chemistry, as far as I know, if it gets into a thermal runaway, there really isn't a way to put it out that doesn't involve completely submerging them. And I could be wrong on this, but like I learned a lot about this because I don't know if you've seen them out there. There's a company that makes these fire putting outing balls.
I've seen those.
They're called fireballs. The company's name is Quora. And to their credit, I asked them, I was like, hey, they showed these balls being used to put out electrical fires in battery compartments. And I said, hey, last I heard, when lithium batteries go and they catch fire, there is really no way to put them out that doesn't involve submerging them in water. And they were like, you're right, that's true, but our product does really slow down the process and buy you time. And like if we're talking, just saving your life, screw saving your property, if your batteries start to go, saving the property really is out the window too. So if there is a product that will save you time and save your life, that's good. I don't think it really has much to do with the container you put them in. I mean, you can put them in a metal box, and that would definitely buy you some time. But I don't put the batteries in a metal box. They come in a metal box. Like the server rack batteries we use come in, and it's a thick box. I think it's at least 16 gauge steel. The batteries are so heavy, it has to be thick. And the safest thing you can do is put a smoke detector there, put one of those fireballs there. But at the end of the day, I don't feel the need to enclose the batteries any more than what they come in, because if they go, you're screwed.
We're talking lithium.
We're talking lithium.
Not things that need to be vented.
Yeah. That's a whole nother category.
Also, I would think it's important to note what you just said with fire or smoke alarms. Most buses that I've worked on to troubleshoot electrical do not have any sort of smoke detector in them. And
yeah, a lot of people aren't doing that.
That's your biggest thing for safety. If you want to, save a life when something goes awry, you need to have indication, especially if you're sleeping. Smoke detectors.
And 2 carbon monoxide detectors.
2.
Hey,
how many windows was your bus originally?
The bus I'm building now is 7 windows originally. And now it's 7 windows, but on both sides. Oh!
What are your thoughts on adding a radiant barrier on top of spray foam insulation?
I did it once. I did it on the last bus that I lived in, and it was fine. I mean, I don't think it was money well spent looking back, because I just didn't know. This was this was like 10 years ago now, 9 years ago. So I was a little misinformed or just uneducated on the subject. It definitely didn't hurt me, and there were air cavities. The spray foam was not perfectly filled out to flush with my framing. So I'm sure it did add probably like between 2 and 4, R2 and R4. But if you're using one of those radiant barriers, any moisture that gets in your wall, like in the spray foam side of things, it's trapped in there, because those all act as vapor barriers they're not permeable in any way. So anything that got into the wall of that bus was staying in there. I don't really like that. That kind of stresses me out. So I don't think I'd ever recommend that with spray foam.
No, I think spray foam's your,
spray foam's your
use that.
Yeah. Yes.
Wouldn't a 48-volt system be better since less wire and the ability to grow?
I'm telling you, I agree with you. And there is a deficiency in terms of what is offered by manufacturers really just an overcurrent protection that makes a 48 volt system way more complicated and more expensive than I would like it to be for something. Like, I really want to do only 48 volt systems. But the problem is, like, 48 volt fuses or fuses for a 48 volt system have to be rated to 58 volts, because that's the operating range. Like 40 to 58 is kind of where you're at in a 48 volt system. And when you go into that world and you look for DC fuses and DC breakers rated to 58 volts, you're going to find there is pretty much nothing available below 100 amps in any of the mega fuse styles or A&L or Class T fuses or any of those. And that's really frustrating because, as we all know, the more your voltage goes up, the less your amperage goes down. Your amperage goes down proportionally to the voltage. So 48 volts being double 24, that means the amperage would be half, which means we're going to be looking for fuses that are even smaller, right, than a 24 volt fuse. And yet they are so hard to find. I would say that they don't exist because I've been looking for years. And so then you have to look into separate high voltage DC distribution systems involving breakers and bus bars and stuff, and you can totally do it. But at that point, you're adding a lot of complexity to the system. If it's something I'm designing for someone else, I'm really hesitant to do that. I like the fact that on a 24 volt system, you can use mega fuses, everything's available. You don't have to break out and have separate bus bars and distributions just for your low amperage DC stuff. And that's my biggest beef with the 48 volt thing. I would love to be 100% 48 volt all the time, because now that batteries are lithium, you have to use a DC to DC charger for charging off an alternator. And so there's not a lot of incentive anymore to keep things at a native 12 volt, range, other than the fact that there are a lot of 12 volt lighting, things and stuff that are held over from the RV world. But I digress. 48 volts great for a lot of stuff. On a big system, you have to go 48 volt, like if it's big enough. But they would all be 48 if the breakers and fuses existed.
Yeah, because of the way things are right now, 24 is kind of the Goldilocks.
For now. And like, it's cool. A 24 volt system, like regular automotive fuses, are rated to 32 volts. So you can use, regular blade fuses on, like, that stuff makes it really easy for people.
Works. How firm is the never buy a rusty bus rule?
It's so firm, I use the word never.
Whoa, there's times. Do you want lawn art? Are you looking to buy a bus and use it for the weekend?
How cheap is it? And what's the drivetrain?
How cheap is it? Are you just throwing a futon in there and having fun?
If you're not going to put money into it, then you're okay. But
are you going to just to see how the bus feels? That's about it.
Yeah, it's easy. Something about rusty buses makes them easier to fall in love with, so be careful.
Very careful.
Be very careful. But I really rust it's the cancer of machines, and once it starts, there's no stopping it.
And every time you go to work on it, bolts snap rather than come out.
Everything is going to be tougher, and every dollar you put into that bus, just know that the rust is going to be what makes that machine, unusable. But if you're just going to park it, I don't know.
Rusty buses make the best lawn art. Is it like a 50s,
They do.
A cute bus.
Yeah, it's hard to put your time and energy into something is going to die. Although, it's easy to get existential from that point.
I'm ready for this next question because this one makes me giggle.
Someone's excited.
Have you ever had to deal with the police pulling you over and giving you a hard time about what you are driving?
I'm sure I have multiple times, but the first story that comes to mind is one where it actually saved my butt.
This is my favorite story.
And I was driving this Crown that we had. We bought it with a blown motor, sent it to a shop in Pennsylvania. They did far more than replace the motor. They redid the whole drivetrain. I come out there to pick it up and drive it back from Pennsylvania to Colorado. And this is not a dig on the shop. No beef with the shop. But they had, at a certain point, not tightened all of the lug nuts on one side of the rear axle down. So I leave their shop and I'm driving through Pennsylvania. and it's a school bus. I mean, it says school bus. It still has the California school bus plates on there. Probably should have taken those off. And I'm cruising. I drive past a cop and I'm like, I got a feeling. And then I look in my rear view and he turns out and starts tailing me. He gets behind me, pulls me over, and like at this point I realize like I don't have proof of insurance, although I know it's insured. And I don't know what the hell's going on with the registration because it's registered in the name of the client and I don't have any of this paperwork. And I'm kind of freaking out a little bit. He doesn't ask for any of that. He just says, hey, well, he asked for my license. He looked at my license and handed it right back to me. He says, hey, just so you know, out here in Pennsylvania, you can't drive a bus if it says school bus on the side, if it's yellow, if it's got the lights. Why don't you just do me a favor at the next exit? There's a truck stop, pull over, grab some tape, and just tape over where it says school bus. And I was like, yeah, dude, no problem. Happy to do that. And so I take the next exit, I pull over, and that's when I notice the lug nuts were loose. Two of them are missing, and they had been loose for long enough that the outer wheel had been kind of shifting around and had wallered the holes on the wheel to the point where the wheel was unusable. And if that officer hadn't pulled me over, that wheel was gonna fall off. Like I had tons of fuel. I was ready to drive probably another 400 miles. And that would have been devastating because we just put a brand new suspension on the back of that bus. And I mean, none of this would have been my fault, but that just like would have sucked for everybody because it was an honest mistake. But yeah, we would have lost the suspension, and because the Crowns have their motors mounted underneath in the middle on the, like hanging real low, it probably would have ruined the motor. I mean, like, yeah. But that's the only one that really comes to mind.
That cop was a guardian angel.
Yeah.
Who pulls you over and just looks at your
doesn't
license?
even look at your stuff. I was driving a bus. Yeah. I must have looked very credible in that moment, although I don't think I did. Mm-hmm. Hey, it's time for a tool du jour. And this week's tool du jour is actually not a tool, but it's something Brianna and I just found at the hardware store.
I love these.
And yeah, talk about living in the future.
I didn't know you opened them yet.
I did. So around here, we love our Wago connectors. And Wagos are a type of lever nut for making electrical splices. And they replace the wire nut. I hate wire nuts. I never liked them. And until I found this option, I thought I was stuck to live with wire nuts. But then I found Wagos. And what they are is, say this is your wire, you stick it into this opening that can accept a wide range of wires. The ones I use can go from 12 gauge all the way down to 22 gauge, which is super tiny. You stick it in there and there's a spring, there's a lever that drops down. And when it drops down, I can't do it. When it drops down, there is a spring in here. The spring looks like a leaf spring. It's not like a coil spring. And that leaf spring pins the wire down really hard, like so hard that you can't pull it out. And what's awesome about using a spring instead of something mechanical that you would have to tighten is that it can't loosen. The spring is just going to do its thing. So due to the heating and contraction of electrical connections, you're not going to get any loosening. And in a bus going down the road with vibrations and stuff, you're not going to get any loosening. So I love using these Wago connectors. Well, when it's time to install the outlets in the bus, these guys, the big problem is that the backs of all of them are these screw terminals that are designed to accept solid copper wire. So it's just one piece of copper. You bend it into a hook and you tighten the screw around that hook. If you're using stranded wire, which is what is my preferred wire in a bus, you have to put a crimped on fork connector or ring terminal or some other type of connector basically that will allow you to safely, reliably connect that stranded wire to the outlet. Fast forward to the future, which arrived yesterday at Home Depot for me and Brianna. We have these outlets where, and I hope you can see this clearly, the back of them, they have an opening just like a stab, insert in the back of an outlet, but they also have a lever on the side. And that's because they've done away with those screw connections and they've built in Wago type lever spring connections on the back of the outlets that can accept solid or stranded wire with a mechanical fastener that's not threaded. It can't loosen. And it takes like that long to do. You stick it in there and snap it closed. This is going to make installing outlets probably 10 times faster.
And safer.
And like,
you're not going to have like shorts with it. You don't have to worry about metal boxes now. Like,
it's
everything
good.
about that is amazing. It's too good to be true. What can be wrong with
The
that?
only thing that has me weirded out is like, why is the face plate of this like so big, you know?
Are you just noticing this?
Well, I noticed it before this, and I was like, I'm going to talk about it because it is, like, it looks like I can just snap those off probably. But it's like, why do they have to change two things at once?
I wonder if that has to do with the differences between European systems or something. If it's like originally, where's that company from?
Leviton?
Yeah.
Well, made in China, but
And everything.
Who knows? But we just bought a box. I guess shame on me for doing a tool du jour on these if I haven't used them. But like, I can see the action happening in there. Oh, it is. These are good. These are just going to be good, and they're already UL listed, so like I'm positive that these are going to be safe. I'm freaking stoked. I hate wiring outlets in buses. They take forever. Ask anyone who's ever worked for Chrome Yellow or done it themselves.
It's awful. You have a couple super chats.
Couple super chats? Hell yeah.
Yeah. I
Who?
think Poet 999999999.
Poet Nines.
Thanks. My bus is a shuttle bus, not a schoolie, but same for all purposes. Windows have been one of the main roadblocks in my build.
Mm-hmm.
Steve says, I highly recommend anyone interested in building out a schoolie join Chuck's Patreon Discord. Literally have all my questions answered there.
Wow. That's a resounding endorsement.
And Jeff says, thanks for the answers to my questions.
You guys are great. Thank you for being here.
And Cora just donated.
Cora did?
Yeah.
Oh, thank you, Cora.
And then we had a couple more questions. I keep seeing the insurance questions.
Oh, insurance questions are tough because it's state by state.
Yeah, but your best bet is calling Kelly Newsom, which her number is everywhere on like Schoolie Nation and stuff.
I got Kelly's number.
She will guide you in the right direction. Don't mess around with calling all the other companies. Just call her and ask for help. She will guide you. I love her.
I was just thinking about that Coldplay song. Lights will guide you home. You know what I'm saying? It's like a bad song, though.
I'm going to find another question.
Find another question. Make me stop. What's Brianna's YouTube channel? Wolf Dog Buses. I think she should change that, don't you? Maybe like Wolf Dog Off-Grid.
Trying to find a name that I actually like.
I'm going to scroll. I'm going to see if I can find some good questions.
Why don't you put lithium batteries outside of your bus?
Oh, good question. All lithium batteries are temperature sensitive. All batteries are temperature sensitive, but lithium batteries are very temperature sensitive. And you could certainly install them outside the bus, but you would want to still keep them climate controlled. And that means usually spending a fair bit of energy to do that. So I like to keep them inside the bus. And to be honest, like just to reiterate, I don't view any of the electrical stuff that we're installing in these buses as a safety hazard at all. Like lithium batteries, like I keep a lithium battery inches from my groin, probably like 16 hours a day. Okay, and
like way to put it.
And I'm fine. And I've been, I've got one in my laptop. Like we figured it out pretty good. And these fires and things that do happen are exceedingly rare, mostly resulting from bad installs. And I really don't hesitate to install this stuff in the living space. And that's where the batteries will be happiest and safest. I mean, like, if you try to charge a lithium iron phosphate battery in extremely cold temperatures, you're going to damage the battery in a way that might potentially cause a problem that could be dangerous later on. So something about stalactites, sulfites, crossing the anode-cathode membrane, and shorting the battery out internally, that leads to a fire. That's what keeps me up at night.
This is what keeps me up at night.
What?
What are your thoughts on Havelock in a box truck?
God damn it. Havelock and box trucks in the same comment? Oh, this person really knows how to push my buttons. Am I a manual transmission? Because you're grinding my gears. This is a good one.
No, that was not a good one.
On my last live, I think I had a little tirade about box trucks.
And
Box trucks are
Havelock.
freaking awesome. Like, build one. I love them. Havelock is one of my least favorite insulations. Not because of what it is as an insulation so much, but in terms of these applications. So if you have a metal skinned box, and your box truck might be fiberglass, but a lot of them are aluminum. The problem that we have is warm, moist interior air. If it comes into contact with the cold skin, the inner wall of the skin of the exterior of our build, it will condense just like a cold glass of iced tea on a hot summer day in the South. And that moisture will now start absorbing into your insulation and your building materials and your wall. And if that happens time and time again, as it probably would in the wintertime if you're living in your bus in a cold climate every evening, as things cool down, you're cooking, you're showering, you're living, that moisture goes into your walls every night, and it will eventually build up to the point where the Havelock can no longer manage it, as they claim on their website. And they're also on their website pretty sneaky about the fact that to really use it in that type of application, you have to use what is called a variable vapor barrier, which is kind of like a one-way vapor barrier. It's supposed to keep water from getting past it into your walls. And then any water in your walls, allegedly, it will dry out. It's kind of like Gore-Tex or something.
Tyvek does that.
Or Tyvek, yeah. But, those are not perfect membranes. And they really kind of hide that on their website. So Havelock blocked me on social media because I kept on asking these questions. And boy, they really rubbed me the wrong way when they did that. And I feel like they mostly have the reputation that they have because they've paid a lot of influencers to use their product a ton. And everyone knows about it, but it's just not that good, frankly.
No.
It's just not that good. And
sounded good, wasn't good.
It sounds good. I love natural. I love wool. All my socks are wool. I got wool sweat. I freaking love wool. I just think it's a bad application. And I think Havelock is a semi-deceptive company about how good their product is. And I also will say, if you price out the cost per R value, not just the cost to stick it in a van, but if you look at Havelock might be a third of the cost of spray foam, but spray foam might insulate 3 times better. So cost per unit of R value, it's not actually that cheap either. So,
and then spray foam is not that expensive compared to anything else you're doing for the same R value.
And it works for you all the time, and you don't have to install a vapor barrier.
If you're going to splurge on something, splurge on insulation.
I agree. Not to give you a hard time. Have fun with your box truck. Just don't do the Havelock.
Tyler wants to know, as far as insulation goes, are there any main differences between building for a warm climate versus building for a cold climate?
Oh, yes.
I'm curious if your answer is the same as mine.
Well, it's trickified by the fact that these are metal boxes, and I'm assuming your question about building in different climates is, assuming we're in a school bus, so a metal box.
Yep.
In a cold climate, my biggest worry is what I just described. The fact that inside the space is going to be warm and humid, and our walls are going to be cold. And so we want to prevent that air from getting in contact with the cold exterior skins of our bus at all costs, really. That's going to be something that really screws the build over if that's a problem. So that would be my approach in a cold weather climate is really solid vapor barrier if you're not doing spray foam, or just do spray foam. In a hot climate, that's an interesting question because technically the situation could be reversed if you're really cranking your AC down. But in a cold climate, I would say things are working a little more in our favor because in general, the inside of our bus, if it's the conditioned space, it's going to be dried because air conditioning does dry the air out, and it's going to be cooler. So we have a cool, dry space that's surrounded by warm, hot air. And at that point, I would say, even if you do have lock wool, you're probably fine. Now, you're definitely going to be getting a lot hotter than if you use spray foam just because your R value will be less. But that would be my approach. I really think it's mostly a struggle in cold weather. But I'm curious what Brianna has to say.
Pretty similar. The only thing that I really focus on when people are actually using their buses for cold weather is making sure those windows are caulked so that you don't have any moisture dripping down, because you will have condensation in your windows.
Mm-hmm.
And then making sure your heat sources are dry, diesel heaters, things like that, and then having good airflow. Because warm weather buses, yeah, you're constantly drying out your air with the air conditioner, so
Yeah,
it's kind of
you're
like
good.
cheating. You don't have to worry about much.
Yeah.
That's why RVs last so long in southern states. They can have leaks, and you never know because it doesn't rain, and they don't get humid, so there's less mold.
Yeah.
Cold weather is the time where building style actually really, really matters.
Yeah, that's a real test. Yeah.
I would use Havelock to make bed covers. Me too.
Yeah. Well, they do treat it with, I think it's bromine, though, or something, or bromine, to keep pests, I think, to make it less attractive to pests.
I don't know. I'd probably be allergic to it, to be honest. So.
I mean, I'm going to get a wool comforter, I'm all about wool. I just don't want it insulating my metal structures.
No, you want to keep a shallow thermal gradient.
What do we got here? Come on, I'm going to start getting here. How about running a dehumidifier? Well, that's always good. And can collect drinking water once filtered. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of gross. But I guess if you had to,
Yeah, life straws.
I have one. I have one of those water bottles.
I think that's another thing to note with moisture is people's mattresses. I don't know how often you've touched on that, but
oh yeah,
not just putting your mattress directly on plywood. You need to have something to have airflow underneath it.
Yeah.
Holes drilled. That
dendri stuff.
Yeah, rat's nest looking stuff.
Yeah.
What do you call that? It's like scribbles of plastic.
The stuff I use is called dendri.
Dendri?
Yeah. Yeah, and that was something growing up in Colorado I didn't even know about until a few years ago. Because it's so dry in Colorado, the average humidity is somewhere around 20%. So you can do whatever you want.
Lucky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lots of chapstick out there. I do have, in all honesty, I do have another tool du jour that I want to share. This is my original tool du jour. There's no like super chats or insane questions, are there?
No.
Okay. So you all know, about a month, it was probably about a month or so ago, I got a new tool, and it was a bandsaw. I was really stoked on the bandsaw, and just a few days ago, I got this attachment for my bandsaw. I don't know. Yeah, let's see is it totally visible? Am I zoomed out all the way? No. Oh yeah, that's good. Very good. So this is what has been my very amazing new mitering bandsaw for cutting metal. So you clamp your steel, aluminum, whatever you want in there, and you can swing this down and you just cut it. But it's a bandsaw, which is amazing. And the head swivels so I can cut 45s. Freaking cool. It's quiet. The blades are cheap. No sparks. There's a lot of things I love about it. Now, you can rotate this to the 90 degrees upwards position. And this is a table that I bought for it that turns your horizontal bandsaw into a vertical bandsaw.
That table is so cool.
In just a matter of seconds. And now Now, if I need to, like, there are a lot of times when I'll need to make a doodad or something, and it involves just nibbling a piece off, or, I mean, I've even used a bandsaw similar to this that I made for myself to machine flat surfaces on a round bar stock, like 1.5-inch bar stock. We were making a swing out of an old chairlift chair. It's pretty cool. So I'm in love with this setup. Unlocks a lot of fabrication options there. It's got tracks, so you could actually put a fence in here and run it along there if you wanted to cut really big miters and stuff like that. We'll see if I ever have a need for that. Usually I'm making more doodad scale stuff, but I'm really amped on this saw. I just freaking love it. It's something I've always wanted. I'm really glad I bought it for myself. So the saw is, by the way, it's an HE&M saw, the 782 XL. I don't know why it's an XL, because it's not a very big saw. I'm trying to rotate it so you can see the name. They're made in Italy, and they're not super cheap, but they're not crazy expensive. I don't know if you can see that.
Will it work with a Milwaukee bandsaw?
This table will not work with a Milwaukee bandsaw. The table itself was made to fit this saw, but there is a company called Swag Off-Road, I think, that make they make vertical bandsaw holders for Milwaukee portable bandsaws. You can check those out.
Another question that's kind of interesting.
Another.
If you're done with your tool du jour.
I'm done with the tool du jour. Give it up for bandsaws. Freaking love them.
He does. He was playing with that for about 2 hours when he got it.
Yeah, it's cool. It's solid.
Have you ever installed an incinerating toilet?
I haven't, but you have.
I have. They're hot shit.
Yeah, they are.
No, they're not.
Are they, though?
They're
Yeah,
kind of terrible.
not really.
Mine gets a $3,000 paperweight.
Yeah.
I got a 12-volt propane EcoJohn Tiny John and spent about a year working with it and developing it with the company to come to the conclusion that it is not roadworthy. It would break all the time, and it was very frustrating. I hear that their 120-volt options are much more reliable because they're using an electric element vice propane, and they work better. However, you're not going to run that off-grid. So as far as I know, I don't think they're worth it. And compost toilets are just so simple. They don't break, and you don't want to have to use the toilet and not know whether or not it's going to work.
No.
So, yeah.
No.
Do not recommend.
We don't recommend that. All right. Well, we're coming up on an hour. So is there anything like awesome, any sweet questions we're missing here? Hinaka is harking on me for a quote. I'll tell you what happened. I didn't renew the Chrome Yellow Corp email address or website, which means that my email address was disabled. So any correspondence, anyone who ever sent me any email to my Chrome Yellow Corp address, you can't reach me. And unfortunately, that was how I communicated with the window company. We will get you taken care of. We'll get that window order in.
Do you have the pronunciation on that last super chat? It's their first
Hinaka.
one.
Yeah, no, I know her.
First one.
She's wanting to make sure I answer her question. Oh, busted. What else? Any other ones?
What are some common root causes of big oil leaks?
It's
no drip. The oil is everywhere. I cleaned it up, but I can't seem to find the issue yet.
Well, what's the motor?
Yeah.
What's the motor? Some of my favorites include front main seal, rear main seal, and timing cover. I love those. And if it's a Cummins 5.9, the tappet cover.
That's a big one.
And the back of the timing cover is also a good one on the Cummins 5.9, especially if you have air brakes, because the air compressor hangs off the back of the timing cover on that. And it cracks that aluminum piece over time, and then you have to replace the back half of the timing cover. So,
yeah. What's
your motor?
My tappet cover leaked about a gallon every 3 to 4 hours of driving.
Yeah, when the tappet covers go.
That was a lot. And so you're saying which motor? Interesting.
Go bandsaws. That would be the name of my baseball team. the bandsaws, you know?
You're getting more questions on sheet vinyl, flooring, pallet wood. I saw one in there about LVP.
Oh God, we were just talking
Oh
about
yeah,
this.
we were talking about this because I like it, but I've only installed high grade stuff because my mom owned a flooring company and I have way too much experience
Plug
with.
for your mom's company.
Yeah, plug for my mom's company, Square One Renovations. You can ask her for a quote. She will not do it. She doesn't want to work anymore.
Yeah, and she's in Michigan.
She's too busy. But
What's the price per square foot on the high grade vinyl? Like, what's that?
I don't know about this year, but it was like anything $5 and up. But you got to look at like Cortex is good, and then they have different grade floorings. They have different lines, and you want like the 8 mil with the underlayment like attached to it. And their click styles are different. So there are click styles that suck and there are styles that work. And when you install it, you have to learn how that click style works. You have to do it correctly. You have to have the 1/4 inch gap, and
you can't screw through it anywhere.
you can't screw through it. If you're going to screw through it, you need to drill a bigger hole and then put the screw to where it's centered in there so it can still float around. If it's installed incorrectly, it will fail.
Yeah.
Without fail. So yeah, I've never had one fail that was installed correctly with the proper stuff. But if you buy it at Home Depot, anything at Home Depot will fail. That stuff is crap.
Anything everywhere will fail eventually.
I don't know. The good stuff is good. It clicks together. It's satisfying.
Guaranteed not to fail
Get
until
the expensive
500 years
Cortex.
from now. Yeah.
Yeah.
Schoolie flooring can be tough. I'm struggling with it myself because I want a flooring that I can screw through, and there's not a lot of options if you do
Just
that.
paint your plywood.
Yeah. The vinyl stuff is amazing though because it doesn't care about water. If you don't know about vinyl, like I think that's the coolest thing about it is that it doesn't care one bit about water.
Yeah, the click together is kind of annoying if you have like an old school cleaning style of mopping and you throw down a bucket of water. It's going to go under the floating floor.
Oh, who throws down a whole bucket of water?
A lady who tried to clean my Airbnb.
Oh my God. That's old school? That's just stupid.
It's undesirable.
Who does that? Look at these wood floors. Let's do a bucket of freaking water.
You looking for more questions?
Yeah, I'm looking. What are your thoughts on a DT360 engine? That's okay. So one of the coolest things about the DT360, it's the same displacement as the Cummins 5.9. So 360 cubic inches, I think, is like almost exactly 5.9 liters. It's a turbocharged straight six diesel engine, but the DTA 360 is a way heavier duty motor. So the block, the crankshaft, all of that stuff is way heavier duty, and it can be in-frame rebuilt. So you have all of that going for it, which the Cummins 5.9 doesn't. The only drawback, though, is that it's not nearly as common, and although it can be in-framed, the fact that it takes liners and stuff means that that is another part that can fail. You have the cylinder liner and the O-rings that seal it, and when those O-rings go, you have to rebuild the engine. You have to replace the liners. On a Cummins 5.9, it's called a parent bore engine. There's just the bore. There's no liner, so there's no O-rings or anything to fail. But if that cylinder gets scratched or screwed up or whatever, the engine's toast, or if you ever want to rebuild it, you have to take the entire engine out. So there is all of that. But I am an international guy, so I would go for the DTA 360 because it's way more robust. You can have a lot more fun with it, and it's a better application, I would say, in a school bus. Do you know?
I found another random question.
Okay.
Would you do kill mat before spray foam?
Oh, man. I would if you wanted to. I mean, like, I struggle with this because the spray foam locks your bus structure together so tight that it's hard not to make it resonant, I think. And even if you add the mass of kill mat to it, like, it's going to dampen it. Is it going to dampen it enough to matter?
Spray foam is sound deadening.
It is.
Like, immensely.
Yeah, and hanging your plywood on your walls. I don't know. Like, what's hard is I want to do like a test like that, but that would involve, like, you almost have to build out the whole bus. You at least have to go to the point of being like insulated.
Do you want to build out a bus and then do a bunch of tests on it?
I do, but we have to build multiple.
And then bring it to a derby?
I think
I want to build out a bus and then roll it and see what stays intact.
Oh my God. We should like give it to someone in need, you know? Be nice.
That would be better.
People would cry. Our work is too nice to just ruin it. But yeah, I think that's what it would take. Because otherwise it's like guessing, and there's just so many variables from bus to bus that I would, you know, I don't think you could really conclusively say, oh, the kill map made this that much quieter.
Yeah. I don't think I would, because if you have to replace any panels, I've been doing some research because I have spray foam on my metal roof in my shop. And if I have to replace any of those panels, I've been reading, and supposedly you can take the screws out, rip the panel off, and it comes right off, even though that spray foam adheres to it. Mm-hmm. So in a bus, if you have to, say, replace the rear quarter panels on a crown, they should come right off. If you do kill mat on it and you're wrapping that around the ribs and stuff, are you going to have a super hard time replacing anything?
You bring that up because I'm about to be doing that on a crown.
Yeah.
We've got a bus that's in the shop for some damage from hitting some trees. And that's going to be exciting. That's going to be quite the job. We're officially an hour into this. Here we go. Oh, nice. Paul Sherman with the super chat wants to know if we're dating. Well, we're not dating, Paul, but I'll take your money.
You're going to finally answer their question. Kiara.
We're not dating, Paul.
Kiara thinks she's in frame, but she's not. Come here, up. Oh,
nice.
You're almost up. You're backwards, though.
Kind of up there. All right, I'm going to take like 2-3 more questions, and then I'm out of here, you know? Oh, you've heard maybe the oil pump. You do have a Huey system. This is the oil leak question. Yeah. Cat 7.2. Oh. 7.2. So that's like, that could be I'm guessing it's like maybe the 3126. I think that was like a known thing. There is a high pressure oil line that I think was originally rubber that they revised and changed over to a steel high pressure oil line. And it was on the 3126 series, which later became the C7. And they were all 7.2 liters of displacement, but I don't remember when that happened. It'd be cool if I was right about that. Yeah, 3126 or C7. Okay. That would be my guess. So there you go.
Don't forget to plug the bus fare.
Oh, yeah. That's why I'm wearing my Bus Life Adventure shirt. So, shoot, we are 5 weeks away from the bus fair happening in Oak Ridge, Oregon. A little over 5, we'll call it 6 weeks. And it is a 3-day festival from the 21st through the 23rd, all about bus life. It happens in Oak Ridge, Oregon. That is a beautiful place to be that time of year. It's happening over the summer solstice, which is the longest day of the year. And I also think there might be a full moon happening. So there's like very little nighttime, which means we're going to be having a good time for a long time. And we have exhibitions, we've got tours, and I'm leading a whole day of seminars led by myself and others about lots of topics related to bus life, everything from finding a bus, driving a bus, the mechanical nature of a bus, solar systems layout, like what life on the road is like, filling up your water, like insurance, all those practical things. And then everyone's going to get together and talk about like just some of their favorite hacks on, bus life, things, services, just bits of wisdom. And then we've got some panel discussions the following day. And we're hanging out the whole time in between. So that'll be a lot of fun.
Make sure you're interested in anything bus.
Yeah, go to the bus fair, busfair.com. And I think you can select Chuck Cassidy on the drop down, and you might get a discount.
You're supposed to know your discount code.
I should. Well, the discount code is always Chuck Cassidy, but I don't remember if we're still doing that. But it is going to be really good, and I love it. And it's a good time of year. And Bus Life Adventure, my friend Brock runs it. They put on the bus fair. just OG, very good schooly people who are all about building community, and that's really cool because we're all a bunch of weirdos, you know. We got to stick together. All right, I think it's time. Yeah, you can crowning around is going to be there. You can tour his bus. It's going to be awesome. Hanaka is going to be working at the bus fair. So am I. God, lots of good questions actually, and a lot of people watching.
Should someone budget to unlock sixth gear?
Oh, if you want to unlock sixth gear, you can watch my video on it. It's $400, and that would be all I would budget, assuming you can find it and take it out yourself, which is pretty easy. You know, it's 3 little wiring harness connectors and 3 bolts. So yeah, that would be my budget. $400 and an afternoon. Can you fly in and camp? You can fly in. If you're camping, you're gonna have to bring, as long as you bring your own stuff. Yeah, totally. And there is a hotel. There's at least one hotel in town, and I think there's another one, but I stayed at one once, so I know there's at least one, and it's a really good time. Okay, I think we're done.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you for joining me on another YouTube Live Thursday night from Wolf Dog Buses in Washington.
In the shop.
In the shop. Got Brianna. There's Kiara. And I think we're going to sign off.
You should ask them where they want the next live to be.
Oh, yeah. Where?
Yeah, in the shop, in your bus, in the bus you're working on.
I've got, 2 questions for you, and I'd love to hear it in the chat or in the comments section because, one, where would you like the next one to be from? And the other is, if you could prepare your thoughts on me building my bus to be all electric, so not using propane for cooking or hot water or anything, or doing propane for cooking, maybe hot water. You know, what are your thoughts?
We have daily arguments on this, and I think we both switch sides.
Oh yeah, otherwise I would have bought the stuff already. But I'm going to be making a YouTube video about it because it is a genuine predicament, because the technology is there on the solar side of things to go all electric, unless, as I've learned, you're in Washington State over the wintertime trying to be completely reliant on solar. You're going to have a generator or be driving and charging while you drive.
Which is like the majority when I use a bus. So most of my opinion is like, okay, well, I need to be able to survive off-grid without the sun. So like when I go on snowboarding trips, I'm charging my batteries with the engine pretty much exclusively. Yeah,
if only there was a way to like generate electricity from waste heat on a diesel. Anyway.
Tell them, they'll build it faster than I
do. So think on that. I want to hear your questions and stuff because I'm making that video and I would love to know what your thoughts are. And let me know where you think we should do the next live. The shop is cool. Anyway, I'm Chuck. That's Brianna. Thank you for being here. I'm going to sign off and we will see you next week. Have a great week.